So good morning, everyone. Again, we will start with a short breathing exercise or meditation to quiet our mind. So then we can reflect, contemplate, and think, that in our life and everyone's life, we encounter a lot of challenges, difficulties, throughout our life at different times. And it is not only ourselves, our dear ones, near ones, but it is the situations of all sentient beings in the samsara. And whether those situations, those difficult, challenging situations, knock out us, make us, our mind very down, depressed, or whether it make us even more stronger. And become even more positive. Depends on our attitude. The way we deal with it by looking from different perspectives. If we train our mind to find light in all the darkness, it is always that we can find some light, no matter how dark. And if we can find the light, even in the darkness, the situation will not knock out us. And the key is always trying to train to look something positive, light in those darkness. At difficult situations open up for new opportunity. And especially to us to develop even more stronger practice. To remind us the practice is the only things that can be helpful in long term. And reminding us, we are still in samsara and we need to work harder to get out of samsara. It reminds us, just like ourselves, so many sentient beings are suffering, encountering so much challenges, difficulties. Thereby opening our heart towards understanding others' pain, suffering, problems. Thereby allowing our compassion, loving kindness to grow. Therefore, those difficult situations can be very meaningful and beneficial as well. Especially for our spiritual journey and the path. And in order to have that kind of attitude, to look every situation with positiveness, take it positively. It doesn't come naturally for everyone. It has to come through practice and training over the years. And in order to train our mind to be able to have that kind of attitude naturally, whenever something happens, we need to practice. To practice, we need to be reminded of practices. And for that very reason, that's why we are here, to listen to the teachings so that we can be reminded, inspired to continue to train our mind practices so that whatever situation arises in our life, anytime, that we are able to look and deal with more positively positive attitude. And use those situations for even stronger practice. And to use those situations to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and wisdom, so forth. And may our time here together become cause and condition to actualize our fully enlightened state as soon as possible, so we can be more greatest help and benefit to each and every sentient beings spontaneously, effortlessly. Okay.
Page 73, the first verse. Once. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teachers of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakti clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Page 75, the second verse. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms, in all aspects. With supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame, lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the flow of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, butchered by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Page 98 at the top, or it might be at 97, the short mandala offering.
Sajipeyi Yoshimeto Kariraleshi Yindegembati Sangeto Mite Owai Doku Nata Sila Shepasho Idam Gururana Mandala Yatayami.
Refuge in Bodhicitta, once in English, twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodan Soki Chonama Chanju Bardu Gani Kapsuchi Dagi Chonel Gege Sonam Drola Pencher Sangye Dupa Sho Sangye Chodan Soki Chonamba Janju Bardu Dagi Katsuchu Dagi Chode Gege Sonam Drola Pencher Sangye Dupa Sho
Kanje Doja Nirone, Tadam Jabang Beza, Tambe June Tenzebe, Godam de la Chao. So far with the 8 verses, 37 practice of Bodhisattvas, we have been discussing about some of the verses that explain about creating the right conducive conditions and overcoming the obstacles to cultivate the Bodhicitta mind, as well as some of the preliminary practices to cultivate the Bodhicitta mind. And having cultivated the Bodhicitta mind, then how to bring that Bodhicitta mind in our everyday life, especially dealing with difficult situations and experiences, how to apply that. And so when we talk about bodhicitta, the awakened mind of bodhicitta, there are 2 levels of bodhicitta: conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. Conventional bodhicitta mind, not bodhichai, bodhicitta, okay? Maybe bodhichai seems to be more easier to make it. Okay, so bodhicitta, so the conventional bodhicitta mind is, driven by the great loving kindness and compassion to each and every sentient beings. Then out of that great compassion, loving kindness and compassion, great compassion, then the wish to achieve your own highest potential, fully awakened state, in order to liberate all sentient beings from all their suffering and cause of suffering, and lead them to their own ultimate happiness. That is the, when you have that mind, effortlessly, spontaneously, naturally, then that is when we have cultivated the bodhicitta mind. And in order to reach to a point where it becomes effortless, spontaneous, natural, first, at the very beginning, we have to train with the effort. And with the effort, we practice. And as we practice more and more, it becomes less and less, required less and less effort, and become more and more natural, more and more spontaneous, more and more effortless. And then reach a point where you don't require any effort. And just like at the moment, the delusions, it doesn't require any effort for the delusion to arise. Effortlessly, you encounter one object and delusion just arises. And just like that, also the positive mind can be just like that, reach point where it becomes effortless. But at the very beginning, definitely it requires effort through practices. And so that is the conventional bodhicitta. And ultimate bodhicitta mind is, the wisdom realizing the ultimate truth or emptiness directly, supported by that, the conventional bodhicitta mind. That is the ultimate bodhicitta mind. Even the arhat, have the wisdom realizing emptiness directly. But that is not known as ultimate bodhicitta, because that wisdom that realizes ultimate truth or emptiness is not supported by the conventional bodhicitta mind. And so since it's not supported by the conventional bodhicitta mind, so that is just a wisdom realizing emptiness directly, but it's not ultimate bodhicitta mind. But wisdom realizing emptiness directly, that is being supported by the conventional bodhicitta mind, then that is the ultimate bodhicitta. And so just to clarify a little bit, when you see the terms, the conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta, when you become more precise. And so far, that is. And now next verses come on how to cultivate the conventional bodhicitta mind. That is the wisdom realizing emptiness directly. That is supported by the conventional bodhicitta mind, and how to bring that wisdom realizing emptiness into our everyday life, especially when we are dealing with, again, difficult situations, experiences, and how to apply that wisdom into that. And so the next, and again, in order to have, again, just like training our body, also training your mind, it requires more effort at the very beginning and become less and less effortless. And we will start with something more easier, and then we go more and more deeper and more profound, more and more, if you can say, maybe more difficult or more subtle, starting with the more gross practices and going to the more subtlety. And that is the general kind of way of training your mind. And in order to have the wisdom that realizes the ultimate truth of emptiness directly, first you need to have that wisdom realizing emptiness with for most beings, you need to have the conceptually understanding or realizations. When you say direct, then in direct experience, there is no conceptions. It's a direct. But before you have that direct, first you need a conceptual understanding. But not just the intellectual, that experiential, but it's still with the concept. By using reasoning and logic, When you use reasoning and logic to analyze, to investigate the nature of, the ultimate nature of self, your mind, or any phenomena, you are using analytical, analyzing, investigation. So that kind of analyzing is a thought, How does this exist? Can it exist? If it exists, then it should be this and this and that. So using that kind of reasoning logic is a concept. So first we have, through that, using that kind of concept, reasoning logic, then we have a experiential understanding. In order to have that experiential understanding with the concept at the very beginning, first you need to have intellectual understanding. So you have intellectual understanding, and then on the basis of that intellectual understanding, then you try to meditate. Repeat that kind of analyzing, investigation, again and again and again, till it becomes experiential. And at the very beginning, it is still dualistic with the concept. And as we meditate more and more, then less and less dualistic. And then eventually you have a direct realization without any dualistic mind. And that mind, direct realization without any dualistic mind, that is being supported by the conventional bodhi, that is the ultimate bodhi. And in order to have that intellectual understanding of emptiness or ultimate truth first, then you need to study, Study is important. And that is why in all Nagarjuna's writing, it's all about kind of negating, refuting misconceptions about emptiness, ultimate truth, and to really understand all of that, then it requires a lot of studies in order to really unmistaken, profound, deeper understanding of ultimate truth or emptiness, So, and of course, studying itself is not enough if you don't put into the practice, So the important applying both practice and study together, the meditations, the practice. You cannot ignore each of them. If you study just for the knowledge, but if you don't really practice, then there is no really transformations, change in your heart, transformations. You have all the informations, you have all the knowledge, but you don't really apply it. So there is no really, it's like just like the information knowledge that is in Google. If you type it, you find there. If someone asks you, you can explain it. You have all the information, how to do it, what are the numbers and this and that, and each of the point. But since you don't really apply yourself in practice, then there is nothing really much change in your heart, in your attitude, in your perceptions, your mind, But also trying to practice without fully understanding through study can be, again, you cannot go much further, It will be, the result from your practice will be very limited because the basis for your practice, meditation, is very limited. But on the basis of that study, and you have very, very strong foundations and knowledge and all the informations, and then you use those knowledge, those informations, all this foundation to your practice, then it becomes much more profound, your practice becomes much more profound, much more deeper. And that is kind of the sequences that you find, especially in Kamala Shila, one of the great Indian masters, around 7th-8th centuries. He was one of the main disciples of Shantarakshita, again, another great Indian master from Nalanda tradition, who introduced the Buddhism to Tibet. And then Kamala Shila came later, and Shantarakshita's students, and he wrote, the stages for meditation, first, middle, and three kind of, and in that, the stages for meditations, that is where he explained the sequences, how step by step, the importance of first having he explained the wisdom through hearing, studying, and then go beyond that, and then have wisdom that come through reflections. So you have heard about the teachings, practice, studies, you have heard it, or you have read it, you have studied it, and now you are kind of reflecting it by using your own reasoning and logic, whether what you have heard, what you have studied is correct or not, whether it has a reason, solid, valid reason or logic or not. And also it is like taking now into your experiment room and experimenting it. And that wisdom is more sharp and more stronger. And then the wisdom through reflections. And then not only that, then through that again, once you come to certain certainty, through investigation, analyzing, you come to certain conclusion and certainty, that is it. But even after coming to that certainty, then you have to again re-practice again and again in meditation, so that it become effortless. That way of thinking, that kind of certainties come effortlessly, and that comes through meditations. And then the wisdom of meditation, also three layer of wisdom through hearing, reflection, meditations. And even in terms of meditation, then we talk about different levels with a conceptual and non-conceptual direct. And even within the direct, there will be many levels as you progress on the path. And so that will be the kind of and then in training, in the wisdom, wisdom realizing emptiness. There are two main meditations and practice that you find. One is called meditations, practice on emptiness like a space, and then practice and meditation on emptiness like a illusions. So there are two types of different meditations in terms of wisdom, realizing the emptiness, or meditation on that. And so here he will explain that. So first, verse number 22, in meditative equipoise, meditate without apprehending, free from elaboration. So that is where engaging in meditations on emptiness like a space, clear, empty space. Elaborations are like thoughts, concepts, and so forth, like the clouds that has been obscure the clear sky, space. And so when there is no more clouds, then you can see the spacious, clear blue sky or space. And same like to be able to meditating on emptiness without any kind of thoughts, concept, the clouds of concept and thoughts, elaboration of that. And especially, especially the elaborations of, self-grasping, ignorance, so. So 22, whatever appears is one's own mind. From the start, the mind itself is free from the extremes of elaborations. So here he is saying, that everything that appears in our mind, external, internal appearances, the appearance of the visual forms, sound, smells, taste, object to be touched in our consciousness, all the physical matters that appear to our sensory minds, the world, the planet, as well as the being that live in there, all the beings, as well as non-physicals, whatever appear to our mind, for example, in memory, we have memory or something. Those are not a physical. It is just in mental memories. Or we have at the moment we have some in our mind, the image of your house, your rooms, that is appearing to your mind at the moment. Maybe you are thinking about lunch. Whatever you are thinking of, there's appearance of that lunch now in your mind. That kind of, so whatever appearance, external physical matter or non-physical matters, the beings and others, samsara, nirvana. So whatever that appears in our mind, here is saying, is one's own mind. So here we can kind of understand from two different Buddhist thoughts, the mind-only school and middle way schools. And in mind-only schools, everything that we experience, everything that appear to our mind is creation of our mind. There is no external, even though to our mind it appeared that the external world, but there is no external world. That is creation of our own internal mind. So everything is creation of our mind. Even the book, even the cup, the book that appear to my mind is creation of my own mind. So there is no cup or book that appear to me which is externally existing, that is not creation of my mind. And from that perspective, so everything that appear, every object is creation for our mind. So therefore is in our own mind, is created by our own mind. The way they explain is, like we have imprint, from past. And then the imprint, for example, when we see a cup, let's say, and from the past imprint, one with creation, the imprints are left by your mind. Predisposition or imprint that is created by your mind and left by your mind within your mind stream. And one part of the mind, or one part of the imprint transform into the cup that you receive, and one part of the imprint transform into the consciousness that received. So basically, the consciousness that perceives the cup and the cup that is being perceived by your mind, they both come from same imprint. One imprint going this way, one imprint. So is in that way is creation of your own mind, coming from your own mind and that. And so from that perspective, everything is creation of your mind in your own mind. And not only the object that appear to your mind, okay, not only the object that appear to your mind are in your own mind and creation of your mind, even the mind that is being perceived, the mind which is perceiving the object, the mind which is apprehending the object, the mind itself is also creation of your own mind, that itself. So everything's, and that from the very beginning, from the start, the mind, maybe beginning is not the right word, there is no beginning, but from the start, the mind itself free from extreme elaborations. And so in that sense, there is no, the elaboration is that there is something that exists from its externally without being created by your mind. And so there is no such. And having understood that, so having understood that being the nature of all the phenomena, totally understanding, fully understanding, it is a practice of conquered children not to mentally attend to the sign of apprehended and apprehenders. And once you have that realization, after some investigation, analyzing, and then trying to stay in that state, without any thought and concept of seeing that subject and object, the object that being apprehended, the mind, and there is subject that is apprehending the mind without any elaboration concept or elaboration of subject and object, then you try to stay in that meditative, like the space, empty space, as much as possible. So that is so then, yes.
What was the other school?
My the middle way school, or Madhyamika, and so then I'm coming to that now, and that is supposed to be the most profound school of the Buddhist thoughts, according, and that is the thought that is clarified by Nagarjunas and all other Indian great masters, Aryadevas and Chandrakirtis and all of that. And also all the Tibetan Buddhists are supposedly being following Nagarjuna point of view. So in Nagarjuna's thoughts of view, he doesn't negate there is no external object. Okay, he will say there is external and internal objects. Okay, so there is external and internal objects. So here in that cases, so everything's, whether it's external or internal, all the samsara or nirvana, everything that appear to your mind, to the subject, the mind, is your own mind. In interpretation of Nagarjuna will be, there is external object and internal object, but both external object and internal object are merely imputed by the mind. And so therefore there is no external internal object that exists as itself from its own side objectively. And so that is, and so therefore, even though there is external and internal object, because there is different basis, and on the basis of that, then your mind imputed whatever that object it is. And from that perspective, it is coming from the subject mind imputing or labeling as it is. And so, for example, let's say this as a cup. And this so-called cupness is imputed by whatever this material is made out of. I don't know, ceramics, the raw ceramics of many things coming together, and then whatever they use to kind of, whether they bake it or whatever they use to do it, the artists or the machines that bring all things together and mix with many different things, and then create that kind of shape and something that holds something inside, such as tea and something, and then whatever design, whatever shape, that whatever they come. So these are the basis. All different things are the basis that we call cup. Something that holds water, tea, something that functions to hold it, so we can use it to drink it, something which is made of many kind of those ceramics, matters, whatever that, all of that. But if you try to find the cupness in any of that made the cup, okay, all the parts and the matters that made the cup, if you try to find the cupness within any of them, you cannot find it. You know, you cannot find it. This part, what you call base, the base itself is not cup. The upper part itself is not a cup. This side itself is not a cup. The right side is also neither the holder itself is the cup. And even with that base and side and all of that, even within the, if you try to find each within that each matters, you cannot find cupness in there. You know, so the cup is just a concept on the basis of all this coming together and has certain functionings. Okay, it has certain functioning, and all by coming all these things together, all this matter together, to bring in certain shapes in certain way, and then it has certain functioning of that. On the basis of that, then whoever invented it, probably, or someone else, say this is cup. We are going to call it a cup. From there, then it becomes cup. So cup is just a merely imputed by on the basis of many things coming together. So before someone invented that and someone imputed as a cup, okay, whoever invented, or maybe sometime maybe the inventor doesn't know how to call it, maybe someone later call it whatever, but someone kind of until label it as cup. There is the basis for the cup, but it is not cup. That point. At that point, you know, there is a basis for the cup to be called, but it is not a cup. And when someone sees it, they cannot interact, relate as a cup. And so cup is just merely imputed on that basis. So Tantrika, you know, for them, if you try to find the cupness or the self, the persons, or the mind itself, whatever object, if you go, you have to find somewhere. If you analyze and if you cannot find, then they cannot, for them, they cannot proceed it as existence. If you try to find it, you cannot find it. For them, how can things exist if you try to find it and you cannot find it? That is the difficult point for them. So therefore, when they try to find the person, then they will say, because sense consciousness are gross and they cease when you die, and therefore, and also other mental growth consciousness. So then they talk about, then they find the person in the subtle mind of the mental consciousness. So in sense of person, then when they try to go deeper and deeper, then they find in the consciousness, mental consciousness. Okay, so that will be same in everything. When you go deeper and deeper, then you have to find whatever that is in that. If you cannot find for them to proceed, it exists where you do that kind of analysis, and you cannot find, it's hard for them to say it exists when you cannot find. And I think maybe for us also, maybe we have that similar things, feeling, you know. How can we say something exists if you analyze and cannot find in the objects? That is, but Nagarjuna's point of view or Prasangika point of view, you don't have to find to exist, even when you do that kind of analysis. You know, even you cannot find within the cup itself, still you can proceed it exists from the merely level on the basis. So you don't have to find in order to be able to proceed its existence. And that is the difference, you know. How can we say something exists if you analyze and cannot find in the objects? That is, but Nagarjuna's point of view or Prasangika point of view, you don't have to find to exist, even when you do that kind of analysis. You know, even you cannot find within the cup itself, still you can proceed it exists from the merely level on the basis. So you don't have to find in order to be able to proceed its existence. And that is the difference, you know. Many of the Buddhists use same term, but meaning is very different. And also term that might be used by non-Buddhists, same term, but there's different meanings. And so therefore, even when we talk about ultimate truth, conventional truth, even though they use all same, even though Sautandrika will use merely labeled by mind, but their perception about the meaning of that is different than Prasangika, even though they use that term merely labeled by mind, you know. So Sautandrika, there is truth. Sautandrika point of view is combinations of something from the objective side and the mind labeling it, coming together. Okay, how things exist. There is something basis there, you know, from its own side, and then on top of that, then there is the mind which label as objects. Prasangika, there's nothing that exists from its own side. Okay, and so that is the difference. Yes. So there is a internal world of mind, and there is physical matters world, which are external, and there is another phenomena which is kind of in between, such as persons, which is neither the mind, neither the physical world or matter, and so they differentiate like that. And so there is, but the cup itself does not exist as a cup from its own side. And so therefore, from Prasangika point of view, there's nothing that exists from its own side. Everything is empty of existence from objectively from its own side. There is a basis to label and impute as something, but the cup is the basis, and so that is the thing. The cup is merely label. The base of the cup is merely label. The handle of the cup is merely label. The top of the cup is merely label. The inside of the cup is merely label. Outside of the cup is merely label. And even the ceramics, the matters that is made this kind of shape and size is also merely label. Even those gross level of the matter that are able to make are also merely label, and subtle level of the matter, and you can go down until where maybe you might not be able to distinguish or divide anymore physically. Still, even that is also merely label. And so nothing exists from its own side. On conventional level, there is cup. On conventional level, we don't go in that deeper kind of analysis. There is a cup that I can use to drink, and it can be a nice cup, not so nice. I like the shape, color, different shape, colors. It can be broken, and you cannot function, or all of that. That is on conventional level, and we in our everyday level, we relate on conventional level, and that is how we use. But then, not being satisfied. Okay, I can use it to drink, and I can hold more tea or less tea, and all of this I can. But actually, what is this cup that I'm using to drink? What is cup? Where is that cup? So when you go deeper than just using it as a cup for drinking, and that, not being satisfied with that, just conventional functioning, but trying to understand deeper level, what is really cup itself? What does cup means? Where is the cup? What is the cup? Then when you go on more deeper level, then that becomes ultimate analysis. But is this broken cup or not? That is conventional analysis, not an ultimate analysis. Does this cup hold 1 liter of tea or half liter? It is analysis, conventional analysis. Is more analysis that is not going in more deeper level. So, but not only analyzing and using it, but trying to understand what is cup itself, and then trying to go that is the ultimate analysis. The point, I think, to coming to the main point of these teachings in this verse, you know, when we open our mind with any, whether it's a sense consciousness or mental consciousness, wherever you look it, whatever you hear it, whatever you smell, taste, touch, whatever you think, whatever thought, whatever, there's always objects to that mind, some object, whether the object is mistaken, unmistaken, there's whatever, there's always object to the subject mind. And there's, whenever that object appear, whatever that appear to the mind, whether it's sense or mental consciousness, there's appearance of the object existing as truly inherent from its own side. When I see the cup, I see cup there, objectively there, from its own side, as a cup. It doesn't appear to me that cup is merely imputed by my mind on the basis of the cup. It doesn't appear that to me. Do you get it? When I see the cup appear as cup from its own side, objectively from there. And my mind is perceiving that. My mind is seeing that. There's appearance. And that is the same with all the objects that appear to our mind. It doesn't appear to us, this cup, cup existing as merely imputed by your subject, the mind, on the basis of that cup. Okay? So there is that appearance. Not only there is appearance, the next level, the appearance itself is mistaken appearance. But then next level, we actually believe and grasp at it appear. That is another level of the mistake, high level of the mistake. Sometimes you can have some appearance, but you don't believe the appearance. Okay? Here, not really. So there is that appearance, and now, after that cup appear to my mind, then my mind, myself, believe and grasp the cup to exist as a cup objectively from its own side. Even though if we analyze with a deeper level, as we already discussed before, you cannot find the cupness from its own side within each of those parts and particles that makes the cup. And so that is And once we grasp this cup as a cup from its own side, then, if I like this one, I feel I need the cup more, attachment more. If I dislike it, then I have more aversion strongly, But when you have this understanding, even though there is a basis for the cup, but the cupness itself is merely imputed to your mind. So then if you see the cup nice, you wouldn't be so attached or feeling of that needs. If you see it as a bad, negative, you don't feel like you need to destroy that and have a strong aversion. And so that is how that understanding or not understanding that nature affect our emotions, attachments, anger, and jealousy, pride. All those different negative emotions come from not understanding that nature. Not only not understanding that nature, but misunderstanding or misgrasping. Grasping it as a inherently, truly from its own side. Another way of looking at it, as when the cups appear to us as a cup, it appears there's true cup there, true cup appearing to us. And not only that, we grasp as there is truly existing cup. But again, if something is truly existent, if you go more deeper analysis, more further and more profound, deeper level, it has to be more clear and clear. But as we analyze, what is that cupness? Within that, it becomes more and more blank. Instead of being more clear and clear, it started to feel like, where is it? It becomes more and more unclear. Eventually, we cannot pinpoint and say, where is that cup? And that clearly shows it is not truly existent the way it appeared to us. Just like any information, for example, if there is any truth in that information, the more you investigate further and more deeply, the information has to be more clear and clear. Because there's a truth in it, and so when you investigate it, there should be more evidence why it is true. Of course, we might not be able to find the evidence immediately, but there should be evidence that is true. But something is just a gossiping, someone just make it. You investigate and there's nothing really evidence to that. Is someone just wrote it, something. Do you get it? Someone just decided to write something. And so to find whether there is truth in, to know whether that information or that news is true or not, you have to investigate. Through that investigation, you know whether it's true or not. Only if you go further and do deeper investigation and unbiased and truthful and deeper, then if it's something true, then if you do that, you will find the evidence eventually. You will find more clarity. If there is no truth, someone just decided, then you know there is no truth, there's no evidence, and it's just someone disliked it and someone just wanted to say something and they just wrote it, they just said something. And same way, so that shows there is no truth in that. And same way with that kind of analysis, so you bring that kind of similarity in our, if something exists truly as it appears to us, the more deeper we analyze it and go that, then it has to be more clear and clear, but the reality as we do it becomes less and less unclear. Eventually, you cannot pinpoint, find anywhere, And so therefore, there is another sign that the appearance and the reality is totally different. First of all, our attachments or aversions in relation to any objects, there's appearance of not only that object, but there is appearance of that object pleasant, nice, or unpleasant, bad. There's appearance, and on the basis of that also we believe that. So first of all, whether this cup is beautiful or not, pleasant or unpleasant, because if I see it is a beautiful, maybe my attachment increases. If I don't see it is so beautiful, my attachment decreases. If I feel it is a very ugly, maybe it might disturb my mind. Maybe I don't want to have here. Each time someone put it in front of me, it might disturb my mind because it is so ugly. And so there is that. So again, even and not only there is appearance of beautiful or ugly cup, but there is appearance of beautiful or ugly cup from its own side, as a beautiful, as a ugliness. But if we really analyze this, does the ugliness or beautiness, the beautiness which we are attached to the object, or ugliness which we have aversion to, does that qualities or adjective, that qualities that we are very attached to, aversion to, does that it exist from its own side, objectively? There is appearance of that. But if there is really beauty, cup, beautiness coming from this cup itself, objectively, then it should be beautiful for everyone, equally beautiful for everyone. If it is the ugly cup, existing the ugliness from its own side, anyone who come in contact with it will be ugly. There's nothing to do with our mind, subject mind, our experience of our mind, labeling of our mind, our interpretation of our mind. So therefore, this will be beautiful to everyone, not only beautiful, equal beautiful, not like for someone 5 out of 5, for some 4 out of 5, for some 3 out of 5, still 2 and 1, and so they all are level of beautiness. But that wouldn't be the case. It will be same level of beautiness everywhere. If it's ugly, it will be same. If that is not the case, it is clear that beautiness or ugliness is not coming as beautiness, ugliness from its own objective side. It's clear, isn't it? So I think we are talking about, being, when you see the ugliness will come or the beautiness will come with our attachments, and aversions can arise, and through that aversions, this strong dislike of that. But not only the beautifulness and the cup itself. So even though you say, oh, there is no, okay, the beautiness is coming from subjective mind, is not coming from objective, from its own side. The ugliness not coming from its own side, objectively, is coming from your subjective mind. But what about the cup itself? Not talking about beauty or ugly, cup itself. Maybe the cup itself comes from its own side as a cup. So when you have that, then again, when you feel that there is a cup existing from its own side as cup, again, there is a grasping to it. There's an object outside there where you feel that there's something to grasp on that. And so when you analyze, not only the beautiness or ugliness, even the cup itself, the basis for that beauty or ugliness, whatever different adjective, yeah, pleasant, unpleasant, whatever that, even the cup itself does not exist from its own side as a cup. Then there is no object to grasp, because our mind is always trying to find something to grasp. So first you have something to grasp, and that has been dissolved with that kind of thinking. And now you think you want to find some object to grasp. And every time you find some object, you started to grasp, your mind started to grasp. And so that is why your cup, then you might not be grasping to the beautiful cup, but you might be grasping the cup. And then when you do that analysis, you understand there is no cup existing from as cup from its own side objectively. There's nothing to grasp as cup. But then you see the basis of cup. What about those materials that make cup? You might start to grasp on that. Again, you do same analysis, and that is also not exist. And you go, and at the end, you come to a point, there's no object at all to grasp at all. And that is when you are able to let go of all the grasping, all the concept, all the thoughts. And then that is when you try to remain in that meditations, like a space like emptiness, where there is no object to cling and grasp on, external, internal object. Not only the object of the as it's in this verse as it's meant, not only the object of the subject, the mind that is being apprehended, but even the apprehender, the subject itself, also is empty of inherent existence. Also, there is nothing to grasp, even to that subject itself. And so when that is the point of what you call meditation. So that is meditation on and but at the same time, as Nagarjuna said, when we do that kind of analysis, even though we cannot find the object within the basis of that object, but at the same time we cannot negate and say nothing exists. That will be another extreme, nihilism. And Nagarjuna does not promote nihilism. Okay? So then our experience says it exists, We can touch the cup and we can use for different things, and so the cup can be broken and all of that. There is our direct experience. We cannot negate those direct experience with that. So then how does it exist? It should be existing because our experience, there is a direct experience that we come in contact, and due to certain object we have a pleasant experience, sudden unpleasant experience in certain object is in neutral experience, all different things. We cannot negate that. Is our direct experience. We cannot negate those direct experience. So then how they exist when we then cannot find, and then the concept that it exists on the basis of that merely imputed. It exists on merely imputed by the mind, the subjects. That's how it exists. So when we have gone through that kind of process of practice, analysis, and meditations, and come to that point where you are nothing to cling and grasp on, at the same time that we know things do exist because of our experience, and then next, it cannot be found when we do that kind of analysis, pinpoint, but so how does it exist? Then it exists by merely imputed by the mind subject on the basis of those objects. Then that makes sense. Then at that point, then it will begin to make the sense of that. Before that, it doesn't make sense. When you hear these verses, it's just a word. Everything is merely imputed by mind. Everything is merely merely designated. It exists only on merely designated, imputed level. And we hear that word all the time. We see all the words all the time when you read on all these emptiness teachings all the time. But still, not real connections. But when you come to that kind of analysis and reach that point, and then it begins to make sense. And sometimes I think that is where certain point, certain practice, you have to understand through meditations. Sometimes it's hard to understand just by the concept and explanations. Still, when we don't do the practice, through just concept and words, we still feel gap. There's a gap. We feel that gap. But when we do the practice and meditation, and then that can break down that gap, and then we begin to understand the meaning of that word. Otherwise, before it's just a word. It just become a word, merely imputed. It's just a word because for us, everything seems objectively from its own side. So We feel so strongly with that, you know. Everything that we touch, everything we see, everything we think, everything seems so real from its own side. And so therefore, this word merely imputed, you know, seems to be gap. And in the even contradiction, you feel almost contradictions, you know, almost contradictions, you know. How can that be merely imputed by mind or concept or thought? It is so real because that is our feeling, you know. And so through that meditation, then we will be able to let go of that feeling of so concrete and so real object from its own side. And then when you don't have that strong kind of that feeling that is resisting to that concept, merely imputed, and then you started to really feel what it means. You started to feel, not just intellectually, but you started to feel what it means by merely imputed or designated by the concept or by the mind. And okay.